really. I got on the name like 10 years ago when it wasn't about that. It was about what I was going to turn it into. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. Shout out to dude, whatever he doing, but I don't know.
It's crazy, you know, like, how would you take my name and not have the decency to act?
Everybody knows him as Rick Ross, the rapper spitting bars about his so-called street past. But the wild truth is, he was never the real Rick Ross at all. Word is, he straight up snatched his whole identity from an actual drug boss who lived that life for real. And here's the kicker. This man didn't come from the block, he came from being a corrections officer. That ex-CO didn't just jack the name, he went even further, trying to play the role of a drug kingpin in his music. Until the real Ricky Ross took him to court.
I don't have to make up lines to make music and talk about 100 keys and you think it's fabricated. In your world, 100 keys may be a whole lot to you. Where I come from, that's a weekend of work.
But how did all this really kick off? Before the world called him the boss, Rick Ross was just William Leonard Roberts II, born January 28, 1976 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and raised in Carroll City, Florida. Way before the beard, shades, and Maybachs, his life looked nothing like the kingpin image he sells today. By the late 90s, Roberts was working as a Florida corrections officer, a job he tried to keep quiet and even denied. But official records exposed the truth, showing he served 18 months before walking away.
Corrections officer.
I can tell you one thing.
Hello?
I'm the boss and the biggest dude in it.
When Ross jumped into music full-time, he didn't roll out as a former corrections officer. He built a whole new identity. He crafted himself as an untouchable kingpin with global ties, flashing luxury and striking fear into rivals. The name he chose? Rick Ross. The irony wasn't lost on people who knew the truth, but for most fans, it sounded powerful. His breakout came in 2006 with Hustlin'. That hook, "Every Day I'm Hustlin'," instantly turned into an anthem, selling him as a street boss moving major weight. The hit sparked a label bidding war, with Jay-Z's Def Jam dropping millions to sign him. Ross leaned in even harder on the image with his debut Port of Miami, packed with tales of smuggling, cartel plugs, and the spoils of a drug empire. But then the crack showed. In hip-hop, authenticity is everything. When documents surfaced in 2008 proving he'd worked as a corrections officer, the internet lit up. Memes, forums, and diss tracks clowning him as fake. Fans felt played, questioning if his kingpin persona was nothing but an act. Ross denied it at first, but once the receipts stacked too high, he confessed, while still claiming his music told real street stories, even if they weren't always his own.
Person that looks like you online, who's working as a correctional officer. Is that or is that not Rick Ross in those pictures?
That was me in the photos.
Okay.
Most definitely.
The controversy didn't slow him one bit. Ross kept dropping chart-topping albums, built up Maybach Music Group, and linked with rap's biggest stars. The name Rick Ross sat comfortably on his throne.
As much as maybe 1 million a day, 2 million a day sometimes, maybe more, you know, a few days. This wasn't every day though, It was like, we had days.
That's how much you were taking in.
Right, in one.
That name wasn't his to begin with. It already belonged to someone else long before the rapper came around. This wasn't some random coincidence either. The identity Rick Ross flaunts actually traces back to a real man. The original was Ricky Donald Ross, born January 26, 1960, in Troop, Texas, and raised in LA. Neighbors called him Freeway because his family lived by the 110th, and later he grabbed properties along the 101st. The name stuck. It fit both the streets and his hustle. His childhood was rough. He hustled early mowing lawns, pumping gas, even selling lemonade just to scrape by. School didn't grab his focus. He was out shoplifting, throwing fists, until one thing finally caught his attention: tennis.
Tennis every day when I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't take days off. I worked.
Like you genuinely loved it.
Oh, I really loved tennis. And not only loved it, but I felt it was my savior. I felt that would be the way that I got out.
He chased a scholarship, and recruiters loved his game until they discovered he couldn't read. Just like that, his shot vanished, and he later said the system failed him. Soon after, he dropped out of high school, and with college off the table, his next move wasn't some big plan. By the late 70s into the early 80s, he tried flipping a small stash, bought for $50, sold for $100. Instead of getting high, he got paid. One taste left him unimpressed, so he stayed clear-headed, believing that focus would help him grow bigger. And he was right. A teacher from a community college upholstery class made the intro that changed his whole life. Tiny deals grew into major moves. When his first supplier dried up, he shifted to Claudio Vivencio, aka Ivan Arguelles. And when Ivan got shot and paralyzed, Henry Corrales slid right in to keep the pipeline alive. Freeway's rise was wild. He treated the game like a real business, scaling step by step. That path linked him to a key plug, Oscar Danilo Blandon. And here's the thing, Blandon wasn't just anybody. He supplied both Henry Corrales and Ivan Arguelles sitting way up the chain. Blandon didn't only front him weight, he schooled him on volume, price, and consistency. Years later, Freeway admitted in an interview that the only mentors he ever had were drug dealers or killers. And in this line of work, Blandon was the best teacher he could have asked for. Sometimes the price dipped as low as $10,000 a kilo, far below the street rate, and the product was always pure. With that edge, plus his skill turning powder into crack, Freeway created a machine. By 24, he was already a millionaire, and his empire stretched way beyond LA, into St. Louis, New Orleans, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Seattle, and more. Prosecutors later claimed that between 1982 and 1989, his crew moved around 3 metric tons, pulling in nearly $900 million, with close to $300 million in profit.
By the time I was 24, I probably was doing $1 million every day, and 200,000 was profit. I'm selling drugs all around the country. I got a crew of 50 guys.
Some reports claim Freeway was pulling in $3 million a day, and some even say his yearly numbers hit the billions. Whether you believe the totals or the wildest estimates, one thing's clear. His operation was massive. He ran it like a corporation, with layers of dealers, distributors, and cooks. Thousands of jobs, illegal but structured. To dodge heat, he kept himself low-key. Plain clothes, an old car, no flashy lifestyle. He avoided beef, saying he never tried to make enemies. He even argued he only sold to people already hooked, and if it wasn't him, someone else would have stepped in. Later on, he admitted some blame for the crack era's destruction, but also pointed at a bigger system that turned a blind eye when it wanted to. Still, the walls closed in. By 1985, the LA Sheriff's Department already had him marked, and by 1987 they built the Freeway Rick Task Force. Some cases collapsed thanks to police misconduct, planted evidence, even physical abuse, so those charges got tossed. But time was running out. His first major conviction landed in 1990, tied to a case in Cincinnati. He pled guilty and got slapped with a 10-year sentence, but then something wild happened. A federal probe into corruption inside the very sheriff's unit that hunted him flipped the script. He agreed to testify, and because of that, he was free in less than 5 years by 1990. But freedom didn't last. In 1995, the DEA set a trap. His old supplier, Blandon, now a paid federal informant, pulled him back in. The government supplied the dope, and since it was his third strike, the law hit him with life without parole. Prison became his turning point. Inside the library, he taught himself to read. He said it finally clicked at 28. Digging into his own case, he spotted a technical error most people would have missed. His old convictions from Texas and Ohio should have been counted as 1 strike, not 2. His lawyer confirmed it, fought it, and won. The court cut his life sentence down to 20 years. After serving 14, Freeway Ricky Ross walked out a free man in 2009.
USP with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. As a man think, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and stuff like that.
Life didn't get easier for Freeway. While he was fighting for freedom, his name got dragged into a national firestorm. In 1996, investigative reporter Gary Webb dropped the Dark Alliance series in the San Jose Mercury News. Webb traced Ross's supplier Blandon back to networks tied to the Nicaraguan Contras and claimed U.S. power players knew drug money was fueling that war. The series spotlighted Ross, Blandon, and Norwin Meneses, saying their pipeline from Colombian cartels into LA's black neighborhoods sparked the crack explosion. The backlash was instant. Community leaders demanded answers, and traffic to the paper's site blew past 1 million hits a day. But then came the heat. The Washington Post, New York Times, and LA. Times all ran stories blasting Webb's reporting. Under pressure, the Mercury News later retracted parts of the series, blaming weak editing and presentation. Official investigations by the CIA, Justice Department, and House Intelligence Committee all dismissed Webb's central claim of direct CIA ties to dealers, but the damage to trust in the system was already done. The Justice Department report still flagged some shady details, like how Blandon managed to get permanent residency and the reluctance to dig into activity at El Pango Airport. Even with all the official denials, plenty of readers felt the story exposed a pattern of the government looking the other way. For Ross, the lesson was clear. The supply chain fueling his empire was bigger than any one crew on the street. Luckily, his sentence was reduced, and when he walked out in 2009, he wasn't the same man. Now literate, he shifted toward legal ventures, speaking in schools, community centers, and re-entry programs, warning people that the fast money drug game is nothing but a trap disguised as opportunity. He pushed hard for prison reform and fairer drug laws, pointing out how the system punishes certain neighborhoods way harsher than others, and that nonviolent offenders deserve real chances to rebuild. In 2014, he dropped his autobiography, Freeway Rick Ross, the untold autobiography, earning recognition while continuing to tell his story through documentaries like Freeway, Crack in the System, and features on American Gangster. Pieces of his life even inspired the hit TV series Snowfall. But all that only set the stage for a bigger shock. While Freeway was locked up, another man rose to rap stardom using his very name. When he came home and saw Rick Ross headlining festivals, flexing in luxury videos, and rapping like a kingpin, he didn't see coincidence. He saw his identity and his story plastered on somebody else's billboard.
He didn't even admit that he stole the name. He tells people that he invented the name. Like, how the f?
Before striking gold as Rick Ross, Roberts was performing under the name Teflon Da Don, making his debut in the early 2000s on Eric Sermon's compilation, Def Squad Presents Eric Onassis. But by the mid-2000s, he switched things up and started using Rick Ross, directly borrowing from the real Freeway Ricky, even though they had no connection at all. Later, the rapper claimed the name wasn't stolen but just evolved from his high school football nickname, Big Boss. In his version, somebody supposedly misheard Big Boss as Rick Ross. And from there, the name just stuck in his head as the perfect stage persona.
Trying to call him Big East and accidentally called him the Big Boss, and then somebody else called him Rick Ross. It went from Big Boss to Rick Ross.
One court strategy leaned on that Big Boss claim. In the legal fight with Freeway, Rick Ross's lawyers argued the name came from his high school nickname, not a drug lord reference. But no matter how Roberts spun it, fans, critics, and cultural voices saw it differently. Freeway Ricky's story had already been widely covered. Gary Webb's Dark Alliance expose in 1996 made him a symbol of the crack era and the underground economy. So, when a rapper popped up using his name, people couldn't help but draw the connection. And it wasn't just the name, the image matched too. The rapper built a kingpin persona in his music, starting with his breakout 2006 single Hustlin', spitting about moving weight, flexing cash, and running the streets. That act looked a lot like Freeway's real life: massive drug distribution, deep underworld links, and millions flowing through the empire. The overlap went way beyond lyrics. It shaped his whole artistry, music videos, and the hustler image he pushed. But when Roberts' past as a corrections officer came out, fans were stunned. How could a former lawman convincingly play the role of a drug boss? Even Joe Rogan, who once interviewed Freeway Ricky on his podcast, clowned the rapper's excuse, calling Roberts' Big Boss origin story the dumbest story I've ever heard. He questioned how anyone could pick a name that perfectly matched a famous trafficker by accident. Roberts himself later admitted Freeway's story fascinated him. That's not an outright confession, but it hints at inspiration taken straight from the real man. The lyrics, the imagery, the name, all of it merged into a larger-than-life kingpin persona built off Freeway's legend. To Freeway, it felt like mockery of real struggle. He didn't just hustle, he built an empire in the 80s making millions a day. The lifestyle the rapper flaunted was the life Freeway truly lived. The rapper denied stealing his identity, but the similarities were glaring. Bald head, thick beard, heavy-set frame, that became the boss look in hip-hop. Fans and critics noticed quick, and separating him from the real Kingpin felt impossible. Then came the persona, the deep voice, the I run this swagger, the drug lord tone. Roberts rapped about moving weight, stacking millions, and ruling the streets, lyrics that mirrored Freeway's history. The difference? One lived it, the other performed it. When Freeway took it to court, though, the results didn't fall his way.
They said I should have filed 5 days before I got out of prison. I think that's what the judge said. She let them win on statute of limitations.
Here's how it went down when Freeway Rick Ross took his fight to court in June 2010, just a year after walking free. He hit the rapper, William Leonard Roberts II, with a $10 million lawsuit and didn't stop there. He dragged in Def Jam, Universal, and even Jay-Z, claiming they built a brand off his name and story without permission. But the case collapsed fast. In July 2010, a federal judge tossed it, saying it belonged under California law, not federal. The judge also noted Freeway waited too long. He knew about the rapper since 2006, but only filed in 2010. Still, he didn't quit. In 2011, he refiled in California State Court, adding Warner Brothers to the list. A trial was lined up for 2012, but the case was dismissed again, this time over the statute of limitations and the single publication rule. Once more, Freeway's shot at reclaiming his name slipped away. Freeway Rick pushed his fight further, filing an appeal. By December 2013, the California Appeals Court dropped the final ruling. Rapper Rick Ross could legally keep the name under the First Amendment. Judge Roger Bourne explained it clearly. Yes, Roberts borrowed pieces of Freeway's real story, but those were just raw materials he used to craft a new artistic persona. The music, the image, the bragging, it all pulled from inspiration, but the court decided it wasn't the full sum of Freeway's life. So legally, the rapper walked away with the win. But that doesn't erase the truth. He still built his brand off Freeway Rick's name and legend. And the sad part? If Roberts had just admitted the inspiration and been real about his past as a corrections officer, he might have gained some respect instead of dodging with weak excuses. What do you think? Was justice served, or did Freeway get robbed twice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.